Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Elevate your franchise with Franchise Now. We tell your brand story on our radio podcast and boost it with powerful content marketing strategies. From blogs and videos to infographics and more, we enhance your brand's SEO and online visibility. Let Franchise Now help your franchise stand out in a crowded market. Visit us today and learn more to start your journey for greater visibility and success. And now, here's your host.
Welcome back, everybody, to Franchise Marketing Radio. I'm your host, Rob Ganley. Today, we're going to dive deep into the nuts and bolts of franchising success. We're going to do that with a gentleman named Wade Brannon. He is the CEO of Pigtails Crewcuts, but also has owned other very known brands that we're going to talk a little bit about. But he is a guy that's been in the franchising world for a while. So we're going to dive in and learn more about what he's been up to. Wade, it's great to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
You bet. You bet. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to have you guys and for you to invest some time with us. But tell us a little bit. I'd like to tee you up so people understand the perspective, right? So before Pigtails Crewcuts, just briefly, I know because Heavenly Ham is a brand I know of, so I just think it's interesting, and I love to meet people that I've experienced their products or their businesses. But ultimately, tell us a little bit about how you got into franchising and that whole process leading you to where you are today.
I think, like so many people, careers can become an accident. As a result of an accident, shall we say. But back in the mid-'80s, I finished college and moved to Hilton Head, South Carolina, to recover, as my mother used to call it, as if I'd worked very hard in college anyway. But I moved to Hilton Head and I went to work in the first Heavenly Ham store that the original owners had built on Hilton Head. And I did it as a temporary job before I was going to go out and get my real job. And I ended up loving the concept, loved the product, and kind of ended up making a career out of it. This was 1984, and it ended up hooked up with a couple of other guys, and we bought the concept, moved it from Hilton Head to Atlanta in 86, and really spent the next 20 years, almost 18 years, building it into a franchise brand, and ended up selling that to Honey Baked Ham. They were kind of the big boys in the segment, and we were the little guys. But we had a couple 150 locations around the country, and we're doing well. I think we'd gotten big enough that Honey Baked was ready to see us go away and incorporate us into that. And it was a great thing for our franchise owners. They became part of a much bigger brand, with all the support that goes with that. And so we did that, and then shortly moved into Pigtails Crewcuts, which I don't know if you want to hear that story or not, but I can start that one.
Yeah, we didn't come here today to talk about that. No, I like the ham. The ham is good. It's around lunchtime, so we could keep talking about the ham. No, kidding. No, I'd love to do that. And just to kind of comment on your point there. I mean, I love franchising, and there's so many ways it evolves, but I love that, that story is, it starts with a sort of a founder and an idea, and then one location, then hundreds of locations, then it gets bought by an even stronger company that improves everything for everybody. And that's a good story. So thanks for kind of sharing that. But yeah, let's talk about Pigtails Crewcuts. It's obviously a very different model. But I do want to kind of drill down into the model itself on the back end, but let's talk first on the front end, what the consumer sees and why it's unique. What's special about the concept from a consumer side? What makes it unique?
Well, I think first and foremost, you can give your child a haircut. Your child can get a haircut in the bathroom, in the driveway, at your barber shop, at the child's mother's beauty salon. There's all different ways of doing it. But what we have found is that parents will always do the best they possibly can for their children, either medical, health concerns, food, education, all of those things. And this was one that falls into that category. It's a place that's been created just for the kids, but is also very comfortable for the parents. But it takes something that a lot of children don't really enjoy. A lot of children don't like getting a haircut, and a lot of children, it stresses them out. I mean, even beyond not liking it, they don't like it a lot. And so it's one of those things in life that parents will provide the best that they can for their children, and we're one of the places that is the best for the children. And we've got great stylists. They're well trained. They're loving. They want to work with children. They love the idea of children. And so it's a fun place for the kids to go to get a haircut. There's a long story behind it, but I took my son to the first one here in Atlanta, and it used to be I took him to my barbershop, and it was just me and a bunch of other old guys and sitting around with, out-of-date magazines and stuff like that. And he hated it. It terrified him. And it was a very unpleasant experience for each of us. And I mean, it was sweat and lockdown and headlocks and all that. And, we fought through it. But then I discovered Pigtails and Crewcuts. The first one had just opened here in Atlanta, and I took him to that. And we waited for an hour plus on a Saturday. And never once did he complain and say, let me get out of here. The tears all went away. And all of a sudden, going and getting a haircut was fun. And, it struck me as something that needed to be expanded upon.
So I think you have a knack for doing that. You had done it before, right? And you did it again. So that's a good thing. Well, and I love that. I love that point about like me. Parents are like that. I can tell you my son's mother, he's 21. He's in college, and she's still managing his haircuts, like making sure your hair. So it's one of those things where it matters, right? But it is one of those things. You're right. You noticed a problem and you solved it. That we all kind of just deal with sometimes, like as parents, right? Kid doesn't like haircuts; it's just a necessary thing. But as you say, it could even be worse than that. It could be a lot of anxiety, and it just makes it difficult. So, man, and then you come across a solution, and you say, I know a way to distribute that. I know a way to expand that. I happen to have that knowledge. So combine those two. So we said a lot of positive things about franchising, but I know guys like you make it what it is on the surface, but you fought through challenges along the way, right? You fought through whatever those were as an entrepreneur to build and to scale and to refine and to make better, right? So tell me a little bit about your process for how you address hurdles or challenges. And as a franchisor, it's not, you're obviously delivering a model. It's thought through, it's built, you train on it, you support it, and you want your franchisees to all excel. But there's always ongoing innovation and change, right? So you have to figure out as a CEO, how do I deal with these problems? So is there like a process a guy like you uses? You've been doing this so long, like you probably expect problems, you know what the problems are, you anticipate things, but how do you do that? How do you deal with problems?
Yeah, I think I always say I don't have the exclusive knowledge of all the right answers, and that's the understatement kind of a lifetime. I take great ideas from franchisees and manipulate them and regurgitate them out to the rest of the system. And I think when we hit challenges as we've developed, the more people we can involve in the addressing of those challenges, the better. For instance, we've got an advisory board group, and we meet regularly to, kind of how do we want to steer the ship? Here are things we're thinking about as a franchisor. How would you feel about these things? And what do you offer as improvements on the thought or refinement on the thought? We have a brand ambassador group that helps us with marketing and positioning and all that. I'll give you an example. We got hit pretty hard in the pandemic, and I've tried to take that word out of my lexicon, but can't seem to get rid of it because it's a good example. But when we did reopen, there were a lot of rules and regulations about businesses like ours. How many people could come into the building at once, the kind of loads you could have, the spacing and stuff like that. And so we talked a lot about how do we do this with our franchisees. We had weekly Zoom calls with our entire franchise body, and we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to end up, and every state was a little bit different. But what we learned was, maybe we should quit doing as many walk-ins, people just come in when they want, and go to appointments. And that way we could stagger people. This is just an example, but they could just come in, they could schedule an appointment. Well, we used to not ever want to schedule appointments because nobody's ever been on time with their child. Excuse me, at least I haven't. But we added appointments to solve one problem, but it ended up making us better. We ended up saving money on labor because we knew when we had cuts because of when people made appointments. And so we solved two problems with it. We improved our profitability, but we also were able to reopen faster. We were able to manage the flow of customers because of regulations. And so the more people we involved in, well, how do we do this? Well, what's the best way to do this? What do we do about no-shows and late shows and stuff like that? And so there are a lot of components that go into those decisions. And I think the more you involve the people out on the front line, which in our case is our franchisees and their managers, the better the decisions are going to be made. Then you got to package it and sell it and put it out to the system so that you've got buy-in from everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And Fran, again, that's one of the things that makes the franchise concept so powerful. It's hidden within that network part, right? Like outside of franchising, we solve those problems with whether it's coaching, consulting, masterminds, asking a friend their advice, if you're lucky enough. But you have all these mechanisms within a network, and for yourself as the leader, you can use things like an advisory board, right, and get feedback loops and work on the top priorities and continue to innovate and expand and evolve because it's always going to change, right? But to have that process of communication in place I've seen it work time and time again. I've worked with a lot of brands and more so talk to guys like you because I do a lot more talking these days with a lot of people and I can learn a lot, right? But that is a key point. So that's a great, I mean, what better way to solve a problem than to get inputs from lots of people that are doing the same thing, right? Or maybe dealing with similar problems.
Yeah. And I think once you do that, then you've got a big group that's buying in and they can help you promote it to the rest of the system. And,
Right.
Because change is always a challenge. But change, innovation is how we keep growing.
Right, exactly. And you have to keep doing it. And that's one of the reasons if I were looking at investing in a franchise, that's why you do it. You've got a brand that can keep doing that for you and you focus on day to day. So let's talk about the model a little bit. I do want to talk about, tell me a little bit about the business model, some decisions you made early on. You told me, look, kids didn't like haircuts. I wanted to make this a little better experience, address those fears, those issues, the boredom, whatever it might have been. Tell me a little bit about the business model itself, like the idea of only working with kids and what are the benefits to sort of the approach you've taken? And now you've done it for so many years. Obviously you see that it's working out, but tell me a little bit about the business model itself.
So the lady who started it here in Atlanta that I took my children to her salon, she came to me and said, "Hey, I want to franchise Pigtails and Crewcuts." And she knew who I was. I was coaching her son in T-ball. And she said, "Would you mind helping me?" And I met with her and had a few meetings with her and kind of told her the process. And she basically said, I'm more of the creative type. I'm probably not that much of the execution type. And so I ended up buying it from her. And, the plan was to build it into a franchisable model. But there's a lot of components that go into creating a model. It has to be, you have to be able to replicate it. And, we've got a salon in Honolulu, I'm in Atlanta, and we got a lot in between. But if you walk in, it's got to look pretty much the same between here and there. Yes, there are going to be local nuances, but generally speaking, the look, the feel, the service, and all that needs to be the same. And so we had to, excuse me, we had to create a decor package. We had to create operations manuals. We had to create marketing manuals, employee training, and all of this stuff that goes into that's kind of taken for granted when you think about, well, I'll just open a business. I'll put some chairs in there and get some scissors and, we'll cut some hair. And it's really not quite that simple. And so, had to learn about the hair business. I knew nothing about it. You can see me, but everybody else can't see. I am not our customer with my.
Me neither. We're both follically challenged. Right?
Follically challenged is what we are. Exactly right. But, I didn't know much about the industry at all. And I, started looking at it and I'm like, okay, I need to understand this business model a little bit. And, I thought there were things like, well, we just need to cut hair the same, or have creative cuts. And, people basically told me that, there are only a certain number of ways to cut children's hair. And everything's a variation on a few basic cuts, things like that, things I just had no knowledge of. But what I did know was how to run a business, how to help somebody run a small business, how to teach them accounting, how to teach them bookkeeping, how to teach them marketing. I look at where we were marketing in 2004 or 5, really, when we got this thing going, to what we do now with electronic marketing and social media marketing and all the other things. It's just constantly changing. And, and so that's what a franchisor has to do. They got to pivot on their feet, not too quickly, because you'll, get out over your skis maybe a little bit, but you've got to constantly look at the changing winds of business operations and see how that fits into your model. And that's what I think good franchisors do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the things you don't think about. It's the questions you don't know to ask, right? I mean, until you've done this, running a business, and yeah, most small business owners take everything from they shoot from the hip. If they're good, they document and they look at things. And I have a friend who he runs a medical business, right? And he's really good. I always told him you should franchise, because I knew he had the right mentality. But it's rare to find that. It's rare to find that. And so, like, when people go into a business, none of that's done for you, right? You got to shoot from the hip, and that's what causes the inefficiencies and the struggles to make money, right? And continue to deliver a high quality experience and service. It's all linked. It's a circle, right? So franchising takes into account all those details, right? So that's interesting. So, but tell me, you were kind of started to talk about technology, and I know when you think about tech, it's interesting. Obviously, you have a straightforward business, like, at least in terms of explaining it and understanding what it is. But as you said, there's details to it. So, and a lot of details related to technology. So tell me a little bit about how you've dealt with integrating technology, and maybe just some examples where maybe whether it's operations or customer service or marketing, where you really feel like, man, that tech has really helped us be more efficient.
Yeah, I think back to, I was talking to somebody recently about when we started in the ham business 40 years ago. And, bookkeeping was done with a 13-column spreadsheet. And I'm talking about a paper spreadsheet and a pencil. And you had to have the pencil because you had to have the eraser, because you'd go find a receipt and forget to add it in and have to erase it and do it again. And I think back to that, and I think how long that had been the way of doing things, and the change that we've come to just from a bookkeeping and accounting perspective from then to there. I've got leases out there still that say you will keep a paper copy of your books. Well, nobody has a paper copy of their books. It's all stored electronically. So, things that we've done, I mean, point of sale, the point of the transaction, the customer, what we used to consider a cash register, but where the customer interacts, pays, begins and completes their transaction, the financial side of that is just so incredibly efficient now, that it saves so much time from an operator's perspective. So we've developed a great point of sale system that really fits our business, but that enables franchisees to take the sales transactions, combine them with their expense transactions, and create regular, important, monthly, regular financial statements that they can look at and analyze their business. But it goes even farther than that. We've created an app that enables the customer to go in, see when the appointments are available, go in, book their appointments, and it automatically ties into the point of sale system. So that's something that, is kind of the old guy in the room. I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness, the efficiency here is just staggering compared to the way it used to be. Now, fortunately, I'm surrounded by a lot of really young and smart, technologically savvy people that can make that sort of thing happen. But from my perspective, I'm just in awe all the time of that technology. And then, that doesn't even get into the marketing part of it and the tracking of how customers are finding you and how they're reaching you, and how many hits you're getting on certain social media things and what the value is, and then able to compare those things, the analytics of those things, and see what's really working. It's just, it's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, me too. And that's what I do for a living. So don't feel like you could be in the industry and still be blown away every day. I hope I'm not scaring you, but I'm feeling very overwhelmed here by the new state of AI in the world, right? I think that'll be interesting, but I think it's still the same proposition of what you're describing is saving time. And I think giving us more time. I think we went through a phase where technology was difficult to adopt and it could suck a lot of extra time. In time, it's gotten more efficient and we're starting to see those benefits. I think we still have yet to see the time where we have a lot of excess time. And I think AI delivers a lot of that idea where now, if we have more time in our business, how can we use our time? What do we do with that? Well, I think it's all about relationships, right? I think a lot of franchise models are built around that. They're built around relationships with their franchisees' relationships with their customers, clients, right? And then the community, the broader community, other businesses and things like that. So I think it's obvious that I think in the future, spending more time with each other will be a premium, will be valuable, and we'll have time to do it. Be a lot of efficiencies with technology taking care of the blocking and tackling, like writing things out with a pen and paper or with a pencil and an eraser. But that's a good thing, I think, right? I mean, I think we can get back to, because I think we did lose a little of the human connection. And I think that's important for brands and for businesses to know that I think all of us like to go. Like parents are going to like to take their kids because it's a good experience. You get to, the people, you see them once a month, whatever it is, right? And it's good to have those connections in the community. So tell me a little bit about the marketing side. We talked about the technology. First, is there something on the technology side related to marketing that you also feel was a game changer? And then on the old school front, such as community involvement and things, or networking with other businesses, tell me a little bit about the old school stuff. So what are sort of the things you really, sort of the staples of your marketing plan?
This is not my overall bailiwick, but I'll give you what I do know. A lot of our marketing is, there's old school and there's new school, as you say. So, the new school is, you got to look at who our customers are. Our customers are 24-year-olds to 40-year-old parents want to take care of their children. So how are they communicating? How are they learning about things? Well, it's Facebook still. It's YouTube. It's video. It's all of the social media components, TikTok, all of that stuff is great communication. We still communicate once we have them. We communicate with our customers via email, via text, and communicate with them that way, and push information to them, excuse me, that way, because they still get it. Attracting new people is more of the former.
Yeah.
But then you go to the old school stuff, and I think you're exactly right. This stuff, this technology is freeing you up. And one of the things we talk about, well, actually, two of the things we talk about as part of our core values are being a community, being a good community citizen, being a good corporate citizen in your community. There is a lot of opportunity for a children's-based business to help out children in their community. And that's really, really important. And involving your staff and your customers in that, it creates a dialogue. And it goes a long way to staff retention. It goes a long way to relationship building with your customers. And so we do a lot of events, but also just a lot of talking. What are you interested in? Talking to the customers and, talking to the kids. We want to help out the schools that are in our neighborhoods. We want to help out the children's hospitals in our neighborhoods. We might want to help out children's schools that might not be in our neighborhoods, that might be in underserved neighborhoods that could use things. We're very busy at back to school. And so it's a great opportunity for us to do things for other schools that they might not have the resources to do, like certain schools around us. It's having the time to talk to your customers, having the time to interact with your customers when they come into the salon, and then having time to interact with the community and be that good corporate citizen is so freed up, and it's so freeing. And it's what our franchisees really enjoy about the business is giving back to their community. And when you can involve the staff and you can involve your customers in it, it's just a win for everybody.
Yeah. I sound like a cheerleader on my show a lot when I talk about franchising. I just think about the impact, right? Like millions of local businesses with this mindset. I really feel like most brands think the way you think. And at least if they're local businesses where there's a storefront or there's a place for people to go, right? It's very much, and I feel like that's the world we're moving into, a very lonely world of virtual connectivity where you're literally connected with so much, but all by yourself a lot. There's a lot of virtual people, especially we talked about the pandemic. Sorry, didn't mean to bring it up. But anyway, we got into this habit of being alone and virtual more often. And so like you have these touch points throughout your day and week where you're interacting with businesses. And I think it's so cool that so many franchise brands are about that, about the community, about reaching others and in conjunction. And to me, that's marketing, man. That is the best. It's a win-win. It's the best way to bring attention to your business is to help people and make an impact, find innovative ways to partner with other businesses and just show people you care. You care about your town, right?
Yeah. We can't do many virtual haircuts. It's really hard to do it through the ether. And
I don't know. It might be a nice.
So, you better want to talk to people because that's what we're doing. We're building relationships face to face. So that's the fun part. But people ask me, well, what's the perfect franchisee? I'm like, somebody wants to talk to somebody. Somebody wants to visit with people. Somebody wants to be a part of their community. It is not somebody who wants no customers, no interaction. It's just not that way. And so I do think that's a really, really important part of it.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. It's fulfilling too. So I was going to ask you a little bit about that. So in terms of business ownership and the way this looks financially for those that are entrepreneurial and do you deal with, so what kind of investors do you deal with? Do you deal with mostly single operators? And then next to that, is there some multi-unit guys that come in and want to do more, have bigger vision? How do you kind of approach your expansion?
Both ways. We've done a lot of single unit franchise deals. I take great pride in the fact that over 60% of our salons are owned by people who own more than one. So, it's a very healthy sign that they come into the business and they say, "Hey, I got to get some more of that." And they go and open salons, additional salons. So far this year, 75% of the salons we've sold are to existing franchisees. And so they understand the model, they understand the business, they understand what it takes. And, it's exciting to see them want more of it. Now, we'd certainly sell multi-unit deals too. Um, and it's probably, 50-50 whether they're coming for single or multi-unit, but most of them end up with multiple units over time.
Yeah, very cool. So there's a lot of opportunity. It's a great business. It's connected to the community. Tell me a little bit about, I mean, you're CEO, and I don't know what keeps you. I want to ask you what keeps you up at night or anything, but like, what do you see in terms of the future? Like, this model well, the world around it, like how the industry, how the economy impacts things. I mean, what do you see for the future of the haircut type of business model? Like anything innovative or anything you want to share about what you think you ought to be doing or moving towards?
I think if I had to look back, I look back and we survived the recession. We had double-digit growth, not in units, but in transactions, sales at our unit, at our locations, at our salons, all through the recession. We survived the pandemic, and truthfully, we really, really came out stronger on the other end. What I see is the density of locations. We got a lot of empty spaces out there, where if we can increase our density, the awareness of a lot of people don't know there's a place to get your children's haircut. It's just the fact. As much as I beat my head against the wall and have for the last 20 years, the reality is there's still a lot of people out there that don't know a concept like this exists. And so, to me, that's my job, is to get that message out there to the world and say, look, this is a good, viable business model. It's a good semi-absentee ownership model. We've got the tools in place. How do I let the world know that it needs to be almost everywhere? And that's, it doesn't keep me up, but it is what, I think challenges me most, and I think inspires me most. I love the franchising model. Hams, haircuts, they both started with H's, so that was an easy transition. And really and truly, what we're doing here is trying to help people have a successful small business and add this to their life that fits into their life, that fits into their family's life. And if we can just get the word out more and more and more, I think it'll, everybody's investment will be more valuable.
Yeah,
So
no doubt.
that's what I focus on.
Yeah, there you go. Right. That's exactly the one thing, right? The one thing that'll help everybody and be a win-win. So that's beautiful. Um, but I remember I read someone asked Jeff Bezos, hey, what's going to change, and he's the innovative tech guy and running Amazon, and he's like, well, I know one thing that won't change, and that is people want their packages quick. And so we're going to keep figuring out how to do that well and efficiently. And kind of like, in your world, it's like, I'm going to keep growing the business. I'm going to make it more valuable for my franchisees. I'm going to find ways to make it easier for them to expand and grow. And you're solving that same problem. It's just the awareness, right? You just need to get the awareness, but you're solving the same problem. The problem won't go away. People still want their kids to have a good experience and not fight that once a month, once whatever experience with a haircut.
Yeah, I think he's probably a little smarter than I am, but he kind of broke it down to the base level. So if I'm going to break it down to my base level, we better keep giving good haircuts and making people smile when they get their haircuts. So yeah,
there you go. Yeah.
Pretty simple.
You don't want any crying kids. There should be no crying kids. Right. I'm going to send you an email if I ever walk by one. I don't think you have one in Colorado, though. Do you have any out here in Colorado?
We got a bunch. Yeah, we've got several in Colorado. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm in the Springs. Do you have any in Colorado Springs? Do you know?
We don't. We're north of you in Parker and in
Parker's not
Denver
far.
and Northfield and all the way up to all the way up. I can't. Yeah, we're up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we
huge
got a
up there.
handful.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sort of a suburb of Denver, but not really.
I love Colorado Springs.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
been there recently, so it's a good town.
Yeah, no, enjoy it. So, all right, so let's maybe wrap things up. I appreciate I could see, like I told you earlier, I know I could spend a lot of time here just shooting the breeze, but I know you probably have some things to do. So I do want to wrap things up. I'd like to ask, if you're giving someone advice, right? A young person that's leaving college, going this angle today. Um, what would you tell them about the difference between owning a business or a franchise versus maybe working for others as a choice? How would you know? What advice would you give someone if they said, "I don't know what to do. I'm not sure if I'm the right fit one way or the other"? How would I know if I'm an entrepreneur? In other words, what would be the things I look for?
Rob, I got 3 children that graduated from college in 2022. I've got a set of twin girls and a son who's a little older who did a victory lap. And so I've been through this very recently. And they are as different from one another as you and I might be. And so to me, the message is it's always a good idea to work somewhere as much as you can to learn about working. Learn about what it is to work day in and day out and try to advance yourself. But then when you get to a point, some people want to make change. And if they grow weary of working for someone or working in an industry or being a part of a bigger entity, a smaller fish in a bigger pond type thing, I think franchising is a brilliant model. I see the people that I have interacted with over these years and the joy and the pride in ownership and management that they achieve running a small business. And it doesn't have to be a small business. You want to build it into a big business. I use that terminology because, it's just the nature, but owning and operating your own business is a fantastically satisfying thing. And the franchise model, to me, this with the support that you receive from a good franchise and the model that's been created and the model that it's been tested and tried and true, I think is such a glorious way to go through life. And you can still have the security of a job if you choose to with some franchises. But at some point, if you feel unfulfilled in your day in and day out employment, I just think franchising is just a grand way to advance your life.
I agree with you, man. I got involved with franchising at the same time. Well, I got involved with technology before franchising and really loved the internet and loved working on the internet. Wanted to start businesses on the internet and sold to those guys I sold computers and tech stuff to the website, the .coms of the late 90s, and really fell in love with the idea of starting a business, but didn't know anything about franchising. And I got involved with franchising in the early 2000s because, it seemed like the smarter thing to do. The internet was the wild west, but I learned so much when I got involved with franchising as a consultant, and I got licensed to be a broker and to show others franchise models. And I quickly, adopted my technological viewpoints and became more of a service provider that way. But what it showed me all these years, and it's been 20 plus years now, is that it's the best way to get into business. You got plenty of time, but if you want to succeed and learn and really, make it happen, I can't think of a better way to do it, because starting something on your own blind is a tough way. It's just, you're going to have to you're going to have to do the cycles of learning, and those cycles may take years or they may not. But the point is with franchising, all that shortcutted, you just got to focus, then you learn. It's almost like on the job training to be an entrepreneur. Because then once you really learn to be an entrepreneur, then really the sky's the limit. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a lot in your networks expand and really go on to great heights of success. And sometimes other brands spawn from franchisees, right? They become franchisors, right? So just an amazing process, but I don't think one that you can match in any other business opportunity that might be out there. So great advice.
Yeah, that's kind of my take on it. Is I like the idea of having work experience, be it as a teenager or as a young adult. But as soon as you can get into it and have the resources to purchase a franchise, I love the models, and all sorts. There's so many different kinds.
Yes. That's what most people don't realize until they look into it. Then they're like, oh my goodness, didn't realize I could do that kind of business this way. A partner of mine always says, if it's legal, ethical, and it makes money, you can franchise it, right?
There you go.
So, but okay, well, good deal. Well, listen, if anyone wants to reach out to the brand and maybe thinking about a business and wants to talk to you guys, what's the best way to do that?
Pigtailsandcrewcuts.com is the website, and that's the best path. There's a whole franchising section in there, and you can study up and reach out, and we'll answer questions.
Beautiful. Well, I always encourage that because you learn so much at every interaction you have with people at the level of expertise that your team and yourself are at. So I encourage everybody to reach out and learn, perspective, right? No matter what, if you're not sure, it doesn't matter because you can learn from all the brands about franchising. So it's a pretty exciting thing. Wade, thank you so much. We've been on almost an hour. I feel like we keep going, but we're gonna have you back. I want to see you keep filling in some of those gaps, right? Maybe here in the springs. But my kids are older, so I'm hoping for grandkids. So I'll definitely be the grandpa.
Keep us in mind for the grandkids.
No, absolutely.
There you go.
Thank you for today.
Thanks, Rob. I enjoyed it very much. Appreciate it.